Today is the 16th of February, 2022. Today is the day that many open source intelligence articles and write-ups and white papers and analysts have been saying is the day Russia is going to enter Ukraine. We'll be talking about that a bit. First, to the brief. Bear Independent Brief, 16 February 22. While restrictions are easing around the country, it's not all good news. Last Friday was New York City's deadline for city workers to choose jab or job. In the end, the remaining 1,430 workers who had not found other employment in time lost their incomes. An astonishing 64% of these people work for the education department. Previously, there was a group of New York City teachers that appealed to the Supreme Court over the issue being a discriminatory religious exemption policy, but their emergency request was rejected. Quote, "We don't want to terminate anyone. We want people to be vaccinated and employed so that our economy continues to open, and the fastest way to get it open is for us to have a safe environment," end quote. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said. By the way, did you see the Uber Bowl? Did you see all those people at the Uber Bowl? 70,000 people, I believe it was. Very few masks, very little social distancing, and by the way, it was in Los Angeles, California, which still has mask mandates for their children at school. Rules for thee, but not for me. Good morning, liberty, 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 liberty. Across the border, Tuesday marked the 19th day that the Freedom Convoy protesters have occupied downtown Ottawa. The day before that, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, claiming the blockades were, quote, harming our economy and endangering public safety. Interesting. We cannot and will not allow illegal and dangerous activities to continue, end quote. I wonder how one would define illegal and dangerous activities. That seems like a bit of perspective would be required in that. Is that a double-edged sword, Mr. Justin Trudeau? The Emergencies Act was designed to address issues of territorial sovereignty. So this essentially brands fundraising for the protest as funding for terrorism. Bank accounts can be frozen, insurance can be suspended, and so forth. It's an extreme measure that isn't necessary, one protester said. About half of the massive funding intended for the protest came from the supporters in the U.S. Multiple accounts have already been frozen. GoFundMe attempted to steal the funds and reallocate them to other charities before backlash pressured them to refund the donors. After the GoFundMe debacle, a site based in the U.S. called GiveSendGo became the main way to transfer money. Then, the Ontario court ordered GiveSendGo to freeze all the funds flowing to the protest. GiveSendGo has stated it will not comply. Good job, GiveSendGo. If I was the CEO of GiveSendGo, what would I say, Bear Nation? Everybody say it with me. Are we ready? Kiss my hairy white ass. Approval must be given by the Canadian Parliament within 7 days. Some of the premiers do not seem behind the move, as in the case of Quebec's François Legault, who said it could be like putting oil on fire, i.e. approval to seize those funds. Inspired by the Freedom Convoy, similar protests of truckers have begun in Australia, France, New Zealand, and Israel. Now, if you're on Patreon, you have the relevant links. If you are not on Patreon, you don't. Patreon.com, search for Bear Independent. You'll find us there. $5 a month, best $5 you can spend on the internet. Now, there's a lot of people pontificating when it comes to the Freedom Trucker Convoy in Ottawa that the enactment of the emergency powers there could have downstream ramifications for people protesting here, i.e., that banks and crowdfunding places like Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe will have those funds attached by the governance that be. For all of y'all that hate that, you're welcome. Should probably suck it up. There's bigger things in life than some dude hawking loogies out in the woods. But I digress. Their concern here being that emergency powers could be authorized here in the United States to essentially say that the funding of people who are protesting could actually be the funding of people who are, air quote, domestic terrorists. And of course, that depends on how one defines, air quote, domestic terrorists. Because I could make the argument that our elected representatives in Washington are domestic terrorists. Because the Redeemer of the world said, "You shall know them by their fruits." And my fruits seem a lot more peaceful and prosperous than their fruits. Just saying. You like the green screen today? Thank you, Too Many Oaks. It's a new thing we're trying out. I like the green screen too today. This is here for a reason, to illustrate a point. There's some key fundamental differences between the United States of America and Canada and Australia and France and New Zealand and Israel. This is here for a reason, to illustrate a point. I have been saying this for 2 years. 2 years. They will do what you let them do. Okay? They will do what you let them do. There's a reason that the Second Amendment in the United States of America exists. And I'm not going to pontificate or wax poetic too long or too hard on this, but suffice it to say, without the second, none of the rest of them matter. There are teeth that the American people have. The key difference between the governance in the United States of America and the governance everywhere else is that the government in the United States of America does not have a monopoly on the use of force. Repeat, the government in the United States of America does not have a monopoly on the use of force. An armed society is a civilized society, right? This is why you see such a big push to disarm the people of the United States of America, because it has been done everywhere else in the world. And now those people have to beg their leadership to allow them to leave their homes, to not vaccinate their children, to allow them to go back to work again, to feed their families. Negative. Won't do it. And I'll tell you this, I actually think that the whole gun tuber firearms community does a disservice to the Second Amendment in this regard. You have made these playthings. They are not playthings. Every Marine or rifleman, right? Bear Nation, I would encourage you, learn to be a rifleman. Your country needs it. And this is not a call to action. This is not a call to violence. So let's get that straight. But these are not playthings. These are not toys. These are not to be drooled over or coveted or to sit in a safe, not collecting dust because you treat them like you treat them better than your children. These are tools. And the reason that they exist is because that puts us on an equal-ish footing with our governing authorities, that we have a say in the matter because they do not have a monopoly on the use of force. Okay? Okay. So, never let anybody infringe upon your rights, ever. Get good at saying no. Get good at pointing out hypocrisy. Get good at speaking truth to power, because if we can't do it now, when things are good, how are we going to do it when things are bad? If we can't say no now when things are easy, how are we going to say no when things are hard? You do not want to be that person pushing your neighbor onto the boxcar on their way to the camps because you have capitulated on your honor over and over and over again. Don't be that person. coffee? Let's take a brief pause. Little husa. Praise the creator of all things for coffee and this beautiful day. Amen. What everybody wants to know about. From Fox News, Russia, Ukraine. Biden warns of bloody, destructive war if Russia invades Ukraine. Report on Russia-Ukraine conflict features Ukrainian neo-Nazi militant group training civilians. That's an interesting term. Russia-Ukraine crisis. What to know about Putin's latest moves 14 hours ago. The crisis over Ukraine might be taking a new but no less dangerous turn. While there are some signs of cautious hope in recent days, the Russian threat remains very real. Quote, there's a feeling that if it's still the case of a bluff brinkmanship to the 9th degree, Bohdan Nakhalayu, the editor-in-chief of the Kiev Post, told Fox News. Just this week, Russian President Vladimir Putin said his country was, quote, open to more diplomacy and ready to hold dialogue. Quote, the message we seem to be getting from Russia is that they're ready to give diplomacy another chance. Mikhailo Winnikijik, the author of Ukraine's Maiden Russia's War, noted to Fox. Now, as of right now, all of the circular reporting is that Russia is pulling troops back and retreating. The actuality is, regardless of what the circular reporting says, is that there's no longer 120,000 troops on the Ukrainian border. There are 150,000 plus troops on the Ukrainian border, and they're not pulling back. They're moving closer to the border. Cover for action. This is one of the oldest feints in the book, right? We're retreating. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're maneuvering under the cover of a retreat. So, keep your eyes on this. Now, there's always, at least well-executed, well-planned warfare, there's always an element of deception. Ready to be offended? There you go. There's always an element of deception. And so the question here is that the deception that, yes, we are actually retreating, we're actually removing ourselves from the conflict, or no, we're just repositioning troops under the guise of withdrawing. The art of war. That's right, Forrest Dog. Interestingly enough, I saw our friend north of the border attempting to read from The Art of War on a recent video that was no Lashon Hurrah. Interesting. Also from Fox News, Biden says he will not send American servicemen to fight in Ukraine. President Biden on Tuesday, that was yesterday, said American service members will not be sent to fight in Ukraine. Quote, while I will not send American servicemen to fight in Ukraine, we have supplied the Ukrainian military equipment to help them defend themselves, Biden said during his address. We provided training and advice and intelligence for the same purpose. Biden also warned that the U.S. is committed to protecting NATO allies amid the rising tensions with Russia. Quote, make no mistake, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power, Biden said. An attack against one NATO country is an attack against all of us. Now, the cool thing here, if we take all of this, all the context, all the players and set it aside, is that if we had a president that was A, senile, B, operated with honesty and integrity, and C, wasn't Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., that would be a very good, strong statement. In fact, let me read it as if I was the president. Make no mistake, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. An attack against one NATO country is an attack against all of us. Right? That would carry some weight. The problem is nobody believes that. Nobody believes that because of the messenger. Additionally, just so we're all on the same page here, Ukraine is not a NATO country. However, Poland and the Akias around there, Estonia, Lithuania, Slovakia, all the other Akias around there, are NATO countries. And it's important to understand that the Russians don't trust NATO because NATO has said that they are a peaceful organization to maintain the prosperity and security of its member states, member countries, and that they are not expansionist and that they are not interested in conflict. However, Russia has cited multiple times that NATO has got involved in non-NATO countries for peacekeeping operations that were counter to Russian interests. Kosovo, Bosnia, many others. And so Putin, and it's important to understand here that the Russians are not a homogenous people, just like Americans are not homogenous people. We have the far left, the far right, right? We have sane people, we have crazy people. So saying that Russians are homogenous is much like saying Americans are homogenous. We are not. However, the leadership in Russia, especially Vladimir Putin, believes that NATO is acting with overt aggression towards them because there were agreements, I believe in 1999, that said that NATO would not approach any further east from the existing European NATO nations towards Russia, so that there was a buffer zone of countries there, of the Akias, Lithuania, Estonia, Slovakia, Belarus, Ukraine, and that these nation states would serve as a border between NATO allies and Russia. Well, in 1999, NATO said that sounds like a good idea. Today, all but a handful of those nations are NATO allies. And so Putin sees NATO equipment, which is essentially American equipment, American manpower, on his doorstep every morning when he wakes up. And that's why, whether agree or disagree with Vladimir Putin or Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., or anybody else for that matter, Macron, Russia views NATO as an imminent threat against their sovereignty because NATO is on their doorstep. And Russia is using the fact that NATO is on their doorstep essentially as the onus, the reasoning for, their justification for amassing troops around Ukraine, and saying their outward messaging is, we are not going to start a war, but we will end it. And so the whole thing is like a giant Tinder bundle, and some, pyromaniac kid sitting there with his Bic lighter over the top of the Tinder bundle, just looking, just waiting for that one spark. There's a lot of reporting going on around this right now. Some of it's decent, most of it's not. It's also interesting to point out that there's very little reporting coming out of the Indo-Pacific region. China, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, India, that whole region is very hush-hush, very quiet right now. Now, China does have the Olympics going on, but who knows what moves are being made in conjunction with the Olympics going on right now. I don't. To a great extent, we don't. From RT, Biden reacts to Russian troop withdrawal. The U.S. president claims Russian troops continue encircling Ukraine even as Moscow said they were withdrawing. We just discussed this. U.S. President Joe Biden has reacted to Moscow's announcement that Russian troops have begun to leave the Ukrainian border area following military exercises, telling reporters on Tuesday that the U.S. has not verified the information. Biden continued to insist an invasion of Ukraine could still happen, saying during a brief White House appearance that Americans should follow his previous orders and leave the country. He claimed some 150,000 Russian troops continue encircling Ukraine without providing any evidence for the number cited. Russian troops leaving Ukraine, quote, would be good, but we have not yet verified it, end quote, the president said. He did not take questions following his speech. Also, I'm sure this is completely unrelated. The Ukrainian leadership that was in Kiev has now moved 340 miles to the west in a small town whose name escapes me at this point, that is approximately 20 miles from the Polish border. And they have suspended all cabinet meetings and all parliamentary meetings indefinitely unless for emergency reasons. So it is no longer business as usual in Ukraine. And the political leadership has essentially bugged out from Kiev, the capital, 340 miles to the west. They're now within 20 miles of the Polish border, which has some strategic importance there because Poland is a NATO country. And so their actions at least, belay the fact that they are expecting imminent invasion from Russia. Let's see. Now, to today being the day, because there's been a lot of circular reporting on this. U.S. officials, this is from Reuters.com, won't confirm reports on possible Russia invasion of Ukraine on Wednesday. Senior U.S. officials on Sunday said they could not confirm reports that the U.S. intelligence indicates that Russia is planning to invade Ukraine on Wednesday, but said they would try to prevent any surprise attack by sharing what they knew of Russia's plans. It's worth pointing out here that if I was going to attack you, I'm not going to tell you the time and place that I'm going to attack you. This is not you and I get into a scuff in the hallway in high school and I said, I'll see you in the parking lot after class. Or I don't like the t-shirt you're wearing at the bar and we decide to go and fight out in the bar parking lot. This is not that. You don't telegraph that at all. Remember we were talking about deception? Deception is a big thing. There are three elements that we want to maintain when it comes to being victorious in any conflict. Speed, surprise, and violence of action. Well, surprise, we know Russia's there. We know they're around Ukraine. So in order for them to continue to maintain any element of surprise, they can't just say, we're going to go on Wednesday. And then like clockwork, they go, yep, okay, there it is. It's pushing 8 a.m. Central Time Wednesday. Boys, go. And so the fact that there was discussion about today being the day that the world dies, thus the title of today's brief, Wednesday being the day, I think it's ludicrous that they would actually go today. Could they? Yes. Speed they can accomplish. They have 150,000 troops and they've essentially encircled Ukraine. All but the western border of Ukraine is surrounded by Russian forces. They've got maritime assets in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. They've got assets in Crimea. They've got assets in Moldova. They've got, these being the Russians, Moldova to the southwest, the Sea of Azov and Black Sea to the south, Crimea to the south, the Donetsk region, the area of incursion to the southeast, the Russian border to the east, the northeast, the Belarusian border to the north and the northwest. They've got them encircled. They could go at any moment. So they've got speed. They've got violence of action. They have air assets, maritime assets, mechanized infantry, artillery, armor, command and control elements. They've got, missiles. They've got everything one could want in order to perpetrate a war. They've got violence of action. That leaves surprise. And so it would violate the most basic of military doctrines for them to go on the day that they said they were going to go. Could they? Yeah, absolutely. They may just, sit around, count the beans and go, yeah, we can go today. Doesn't matter. And then they go. Also, I would imagine, because I believe Ukraine is 13 hours ahead of us? Don't quote me on that, but I believe they're 13 hours ahead of us. That means that as the sun is coming up here now, it's going down over there. Modern warfare is in many cases perpetrated at night. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Shock and awe, Brad Wilkerson, shock and awe. So will they go today? Don't know. But we'll see. Let's see. Drudge Report has a whole bunch of nonsense today. And then I wanted to close the brief with this from The Blaze. YouTube CEO urges governments to outlaw harmful speech. Let me repeat that headline. YouTube CEO urges governments to outlaw harmful speech. Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, has acknowledged that the platform's policy of censoring legal content that it deems to be harmful is controversial and urged governments to step in and pass stronger speech laws. She made terrifying comments about censorship during an interview with Tide TV Hamburg. That'd be Germany. So where does YouTube stand on policy meant to censor legal content, with so-called harmful ratings? Wojcicki explained how she urges governments to pass laws the platform can easily enforce. Quote, we work around the globe, and you're right, certainly there are many different laws in many different jurisdictions, and we enforce the laws of various jurisdictions around speech or what's considered safe or not safe, Wojcicki said. Quote, what's been the controversial part is when there is content that would be deemed as harmful but is not yet illegal. There's content that is deemed harmful but is not illegal. That's the controversial part, according to Wojcicki. An example of that, for example, would be COVID. Her words, Todd at YouTube. Quote, an example of that, for example, would be COVID. I'm not aware of there being laws by governments saying around COVID in terms of not being able to debate the efficacy of masks or where the virus came from or the right treatment or proposal, but yet there was a lot of pressure and concern about us distributing misinformation that went against what was the standard and accepted medical knowledge. So this category of harmful but legal speech has been, I think, where most of the discussion has been. Let me break that down Barney style for you. The CEO, Chief Executive Officer of this platform that I am talking to you on right now, is saying that it has become tricky for her organization to justify the banning of harmful speech that's not illegal. Therefore, she is encouraging lawmakers to make that harmful speech illegal so that it reinforces their banning or censorship of that harmful speech, which is now illegal, because currently they don't have a precedent to work under. So, subscribe to the alternate channel here. Today could be one of those days that I get banned again. The Blue Collar President on YouTube. Blue Collar President. That's me. You'll find me there. Subscribe to the alternate channel if you're not already. Additionally, Patreon is more than just an I love me, you should love me too page. Okay? It's an alternate platform over there where we can continue to have discourse. There's also more than 2,000 videos there that have never seen the light of day, including exclusive content 3 to 5 times a week over there that you'll never get here on YouTube because I like things like this, which I'm not even allowed by the powers that be on YouTube to touch on video, on a live stream. Okay? So, patreon.com, search for Bear Independent. It's $5 a month. I guarantee you, you will get your money's worth. And if you don't, you can quit and you're out $5. Now, if you're one of those people that jumps off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, beat feet, get out of here, skedaddle, have a blessed day. Now I'm going to pay my bills. All right? 738 shirts to date have been ordered for the Ungovernable t-shirt. I got mine. They are starting to ship now. So, if you want one, get one now while you can. They are only running through the 28th of this month. Let's see. Let's just make sure y'all can see. You see that? So, to the 28th of this month, the Ungovernable t-shirt is running. Get those at bearindependent.com. Not Refuge Medical. bearindependent.com. All right? They are printing and shipping now. These are being done by Sanctified Supply Co., which is our favorite apparel company. And this is a two-man operation, and they are inundated with orders. 738, I believe 738 shirts to date. So bless y'all and thank you for ordering as many of these as you can, and they are printing them and shipping them as fast as you can. After the 28th of February, they will be impossible to get. No, we're not going to print them again. No. not happening. So if you don't get them before the 28th, you cannot get them. Everybody tracking on that? Copy. Appreciate you. Looks nice. Thank you, MC Youper. I like it a lot. I also like how the bear logo is a little battle worn. I'm a big fan of that. Now, next. You guys are awesome. You have supported Refuge Medical so much in the last few days that our lead time on Bearfax is 3 to 4 weeks currently. If you want a Bearfac, go get a Bearfac, okay? I'm just telling you, if you want one, go get one. Get your name on the list. 3 to 4 weeks current fulfillment time, which, by the way, is entirely reasonable for a handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever, 33 lives saved, exceeds military specification, deployed on 4 continents electively with all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces and law enforcement, EMS, fire, and civilian sheepdogs all over the globe. First aid kit that will actually save your life, not just fix your boo-boos, okay? 3 to 4 weeks fulfillment time currently on the Bearfac. However, the SOB lead times are still incredibly fast on the SOB. These are made by our brother Cody at Sojourn Gear. This is the SOB, the small of the back kit. All right, and so it's about this big, right? It's not very big at all. You got your cat tourniquet attached to the outside with shock cord. And the reason it's on with shock cord, not a sleeve, like a lot of people use a sleeve here, is because this can be ripped off with either direction. And that's incredibly important because you may not have this hand. 2 of the 33 lives that have been saved, the person was missing this hand or had a grievous injury to this hand. So if it only comes out this way because of the sleeve that's here, and you can't pull it out this way because your hand's gone, guess what you're doing? Bleeding to death. All right? So, comes out either direction, all right? Shock corded on there. Now, this is MOLLE capable. You can mount it on your war belt or on your plate carrier or on your headrest or wherever. I like mine. I have one upside down on my plate carrier right underneath here. It makes a great place to put your arm when you're patrolling. We also run these on our war belts. And it was designed for a war belt, but it works on any of your kit. Plate carrier, chest rig, war belt. It weighs as much as one loaded AR magazine, okay? Handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever. You pop this open, you pull the red tab, and this comes out. This, see right there? Look at that. Made in the USA. I love it when people are like, Bear, you're not a true patriot. I'm like, cool, what's your company called? Because mine's called Refuge Medical. And we make everything in America. See that stitching? Look at that stitching. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this. That's done by hand, people. By hand. Yeah. You pop this open. And then here you got your Sharpie. You can add a decompression needle at checkout. And then in here, you've got fold flat duct tape, high-fin compact chest seals, nasal pharyngeal airway. You've got an emergency 4-inch emergency trauma bandage right here, a pair of gloves, compressed gauze for wound packing, and standard in this kit, because this is a combat kit, you've got combat gauze, quick clot combat gauze for wound packing as well. Now this is designed to work the most common battlefield injuries: massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, head injury. Also, we do have, I'm just telling y'all, if you're not particularly interested in the SOB or you're looking for a kit that has a full-size pressure bandage and full-size chest seals in it, check out the bare minimum, okay? It's got bare minimums, a few of them in stock, like a few bare minimums in stock. And so check out the bare minimum today. All this is at refugemedical.com. You can use promo code BEARNATION for free shipping. Buckets, I told you I did the bucket thing. If you want a bucket, get it, all right? I don't know how long they're gonna last. We talked about t-shirts, we talked about Patreon, we talked about Refuge Medical. I appreciate y'all. Let's talk to the Father, because today could be a weird day, could be a great day. Whatever it's going to be is his will. So let's talk to him. Good morning, Father Yah. Father, thank you for another opportunity to be alive and breathe your air today. Father, thank you for the best job in the world. Father, thank you for everybody within the sound of my voice. Father, I pray that you would bless us today and that you would send your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, for wisdom and discernment amidst all of this nonsense and chaos that's out there today. Father, for strength in the face of adversity and for remembering who precisely we are subjected to, and that is you. Father, and remembering that we are commanded to fear only you, that there is no fear other than the fear of you that is righteous, that we would walk with our heads held high, that we would be men and women of you who are unafraid of the wiles of the enemy or the challenges of the day. Father, I pray that you'd bring us peace, internal peace, even as external peace seems to become a fleeting thing more and more these days. Father, I pray whatever it may come, that this world that you've put us into, not by accident, but fearfully and wonderfully made for this time, this exact moment, that we would create a life worth living for our children and for our grandchildren. And the blessings that we know would not be squandered. Father, I pray that you would equip and empower us today to do your works, to be your hands and feet. That you would put us where you need us today. That you would use us for your glory. And that we would experience blessings and provision and protection in the doing of your work and your will. Father, guard us from the wiles of the enemy. And if there be anything within the sound of my voice that is not of you, we come together in agreement and rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach and command it to flee. Father, thank you. Thank you for my people. Thank you for blessing us. Father, thank you for the opportunity to humble ourselves in front of you. I ask all these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom.